Thanks for asking that question. Let me answer your first question first, though, and that is that in order for any threat to be considered credible, we look at a whole range of sources, and that in both public, from our partners, from our own sources. So, and that was certainly the case here. We very quickly, whenever there's a threat, compare notes. Again, especially with our host government counterparts, but also with other countries to determine whether or not we think they are credible. Thank you for asking about it. Just a couple of points. You're right. There's been tremendous progress made by your government to improve both worker rights and safety. I think we've said over and over again the progress made on the safety side has been especially striking. We look forward to continuing, especially now that most of the vast majority of factory inspections are done, but there are about, I think, 200 factories that still haven't been inspected. And in order to do so, to be able to have those inspections done free of charge, they need to be done by the end of this month. Which brings me to the next point, and that is that Bangladesh's RMG sector has benefited from an absolutely unprecedented coalition. In fact, we've had other countries come to us and say, how can we get a 3+5 type partnership going? Where else do you see the industry, the buyers, other governments, and the international organizations all coming together for the benefit of one industrial sector? And that has included a lot of investment, especially from the buyers who, through the Alliance and the Accord, have paid for the inspections. The expertise, the engineering and other expertise required to do an inspection is not free, and it's been the buyers who have paid for that. In addition, buyers have offered at the individual level with the companies they work with, lots of different kinds of arrangements to help the companies they work with pay for the mitigation, for the different things that need to be corrected according to the inspections. And I hasten to add that USAID has just concluded agreements to provide $22 million in credit guarantees for small and medium companies who have more difficulty borrowing money so that they can make safety improvements themselves. You don't hear me talk about fair pricing much for one reason, and that is that in the marketplace, a fair price is what a company, a buyer and a seller can negotiate between them. To ask outright for buyers to pay more money for the same good is maybe a short-term solution, but if I'm a buyer, I'm going to continue to look for a better price because that's my job. I represent a company and I have to provide them the best benefit. The RMG sector is notorious for having very thin margins. This country has been producing garments for 30 years, and it has helped change the face of the way people buy clothes. I don't know if you're aware of this, but when I was a young girl, my parents, we were from a lower middle income family, but we bought clothes 3 times a year. At the beginning of the school year, it was only what we needed. We bought each other maybe some clothes at Christmas time, and we bought each other, and my parents bought us new clothes for Easter, our Eve, in a lot of ways. Otherwise, I did not get a new piece of clothing unless I outgrew it or I wore it out, or I destroyed it, and I better not destroy it because then I was really in trouble. Today, the average American buys 64 pieces of clothing a year. I assure you, they don't do that because they need them. And they don't just do it because they want them, they do it because they can buy those clothes at a competitive price. And that is the way, and the fact that Bangladeshi producers help get a piece of clothing from the drawing board to the clothing rack in 3 to 4 weeks, sometimes in 6 weeks' time, is incredibly, that has made you an incredibly competitive producer, but it has also contributed to how inexpensive those pieces of clothing are and how much the buyer is going to buy during the course of the year. So I think fair pricing, yes, the buyer should have to should have to negotiate on a fair basis. But by the same token, they're not going to pay any more than they have to, because that's the way the marketplace works. I've urged your industry, and will continue to do so, and to help it do so, to help become more and more competitive. Having been in the market for 30 years, in order to stay competitive, the industry is going to have to move up the value chain. That means producing more complex clothing items, and doing it in a way that is more efficient. There is a lot of room for increasing the efficiency of your industry. That alone will create the profits. So, in addition to looking at price, factory owners should be looking at how they can make their production lines more efficient. And here's the really good news. The international standards that we are pressing for under the action plan contribute directly to making the industry more productive. So we're not asking the industry to do something that will hold it back. We're asking the industry to adopt these standards that will in fact help make it more productive.